I did have a life before ATVs. Those corgis have been with us from the start. There's a lot of people that don't know and don't understand where 88 Live to Ride came from. So Joe gets on the phone and he said, I'm getting my mod done. And he says, and I'd like to run 88. 88 Live to Ride. Why we started it was because it was so frustrating to Matt to have to leave the track. I'd like to see us get a new series. I'd like to see a new series with someone who is enthused.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Four Wheel Frenzy, the ATV racing podcast. And today I have with me Debi Bartosek from 88 Live to Ride and JB Racing. Now, Debi, I just said where you're from, but what exactly do you do with ATV racing?
Leon, pretty much. I am the president of 88 Live to Ride, and I travel with Jody to each of the events and then just kind of manage things that are going on at the track with 88 Live to Ride.
Okay, that is awesome. And I guess before we really get started with everything, Debi, what was your life like before ATVs?
Oh, I did have a life before ATVs, but very involved with sports with my boys. Both John and Matt were involved in wrestling and Little League and everything. So I helped out with Little League doing scoring. And then I was also an Erie County 4-H leader for 20 years. So that kind of occupied all my time.
So you've always been a pretty busybody most of your life.
Most of my life, that's correct, yes. Always involved in what the kids were doing.
Okay. And I guess, what point did you get involved with ATVs?
Well, it started back, I'd say, in 92 or 93. Jody invited me to bring the boys out to the racetrack, Pymatuming Hole Shot, to watch him and his good friend race.
Okay.
Well, it all went from there. They went out and watched and said, oh, we want to do that too. So we picked up from there, got them a couple quads, and they just, for several years, we just did local races, and we did a little out in the woods racing, and then in, I think it was 96, we started the national series.
Okay. How old were the boys then, do you think, when they first got involved?
When they first got involved, I believe Matt was 7, and John would have been 10.
Okay. That is crazy. And so, I mean, that kind of then rolls in, obviously you mentioned Jody, who's essentially JB. So, I mean, you've been involved with JB from the beginning of JB? Not physically in the building, working, helping that way. But it was probably about 10 years ago that I came out, because his then secretary, Krista Mumaw, who is now Krista Mumaw, she was Krista Watson, fell in love and moved downstate with Kevin Mumaw, who has Lost Creek. Okay.
Yes.
Full circle moment there.
Oh, yes. So then Jody was without anyone. And so I said, well, I can do payroll for sure and things like that. So I was helping him in the evening, and then it was like, okay, can you do the shipping for me? Can you do the invoicing for me? And I'm like, okay then.
So it kind of rolled into my next question. You know, what all do you do here at JB Racing?
Myself?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's for all the things you do, it's hard to give yourself a job title.
Oh,
but
hard.
like you just said, you're doing a lot of the shipping, receiving. You're doing the invoicing,
payroll, taxes, all that fun
answering
stuff.
The emails.
Answering emails. I do not answer the phone. For anybody who wonders why our phone doesn't get answered a lot, it's because I can't hear on our phone. I wear cochlear implants, and this phone system, I can't hear on it. Okay. So I let it go.
Yeah, because you do see all the time, well, I'm trying to call JB, why can't I get an answer? Well, it is a small crew here to begin with.
Right.
But, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that comes here and talks to Jody when they're here. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that phone ring and ring and ring and never get answered.
Yes, I'm sorry. But I have changed the message to say that if you want to get in touch with us, the best way is through email.
Right.
And I give them the email address.
Yeah, because I feel like anytime there's an email sent, it gets responded fairly quickly. With my experience anyways, it's a fairly quick answer.
I try to do that. I try to do that with Facebook messages, but sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes we've been gone. We get back to the shop. I'm overloaded with other things I have to get done. And I just say, whoop, we're going to forget that for a little bit.
Yeah. And, obviously JB Racing, we'll see if I can get Jody on here at some point, but just in case, what exactly is JB Racing? What do we do here?
He does fabrication of race components, and he does a wonderful job for the size of shop he has.
Absolutely.
And he is pretty much self-taught with all this. Started right after he got out of high school.
Okay.
And took over my house garage. And then it got too big, and I said, okay, I'm getting rid of the horses. You can use the barn. So the front shop used to be my barn.
Okay.
And then he added on the lean-to and sided it in, and then he bought that back building from International Paper. Okay. Tore it down in Erie, brought it out here, and got it set up.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, you can see obviously behind us is a green siding. Behind you, off camera, is red siding. We're obviously in the lean-to here. Yeah, it's been added on, and it just happens. You grow, right. You run out of space. You got to do something. And, so JB Racing is mainly like chassis components, correct?
Correct.
And then obviously, right in front of, off camera again, in front of us, I see a JB Racing water pump cover, a lot of different billet aluminum pieces I see out there as well.
Right.
So it's kind of JB Racing takes care of a lot of ATV needs in general.
That's correct. Yes, he does. And when he sees a need, he tries to figure out how to meet it.
Yeah. Because obviously the other thing too is there's the full JB mods, which is an entire chassis.
Right.
You've got the suspension components, the A-arms, swing arms, steering stems, subframes. I think that's probably the most common at this point. Especially if you have a Yamaha, those are the pieces you're throwing on, and a linkage nowadays too. So it's really cool, what goes on here. And like you said, for the space and the size of this place, what all happens in here is really impressive.
It is. And he just finished up a mod, Ada Poduznik. is racing it. And she raced it this past weekend at Ekchikani and took first in the girls 8 to 13.
That is awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and that was a really cool, I saw that machine before it left, and it was beautiful little four-wheeler.
It was.
Beautiful little four-wheeler. Yeah, so congratulations to her too.
Yeah.
First ride on it, first win. I mean, it's there's an accomplishment right there.
Right.
And then, of course, you know, there is no Jody, there is no Debbie, whether it's here at the shop, at the track, wherever, without the corgis.
Oh, no, that's true. And those corgis have been with us from the start.
That is awesome. So
from
amazing.
From the start.
Yeah.
Of course, none of the two that we have now are not originals.
Right.
But, yeah, we've always had corgis and just love them to death.
That's great. They're basically the greeter / mascot of JB Racing.
Yes.
You walk in the door and there's Riley every time. You know? And like I said, at the track, you know, you see them. Obviously, you've always got your daily walks to let them go to the bathroom and.
Right.
You know, it's so cool. I love seeing the corgis.
It is. I love seeing all the dogs at the track. You know, it's just they each have their own personality and, you know, and how they match up with their owners and stuff.
Absolutely.
It's so much fun.
Absolutely. And I heard a rumor that thanks to myself, a dachshund might be in the picture at some point.
Well, I have been thinking about that. I was thinking I'd like to go even a little smaller than the corgi. And I have a neighbor down the road that has a long-haired dachshund. Now it's a full size.
Okay.
But I'm thinking maybe even a mini. I have to research a little bit more.
Tatum, we didn't know right away, but Tatum is a mini.
Really?
And, yep. And anybody that watches these has seen Tatum in previous episodes. So
yes.
Yeah, he's a mini. I mean, he's a little guy. I will say though, he has a very odd personality for a dachshund. You know, they're usually not the way he is.
Well, I have heard some different things about them that, you know, it's like, well, I need to look into this a little bit farther. Oh, darn, there goes that phone.
Yeah, there goes the phone that won't get answered. Well, technically we're closed anyways.
That's
You're closed,
true.
So, but yeah, you know, obviously I had to bring up the corgis. Got to bring up the dogs. I know you love dogs, and you know, it's
yes. Yeah. And let me say this about that. Riley, most of my corgis have been pretty friendly at the track with other dogs. Poor Riley has had 2 bad experiences of being rolled by a Great Pyrenees.
Okay.
And so now she just goes on the defensive whenever she gets with another dog. Please don't feel offended that she doesn't like your dog.
Tatum feels really, really heartbroken about it because he just wants to play with her. But it just happens, unfortunately. You know, it's sad to say, but you know, some dogs just don't like other dogs. And,
are just
antisocial. And obviously, something like that has happened. Yeah. Obviously, can't blame her.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no, right.
Yeah. But obviously, you know, you've got 2 sons.
Right.
You know, we've got John and you've got Matt. Both rode ATVs.
Yes, correct.
And both kind of, you know, I don't know how far both of them really went, but you know, Matt has been a huge part of your life and what you do with ATVs now. Do you know, obviously you kind of said how he got into ATVs. Do you want to dive a little deeper into that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, Matt started on an LT80.
Okay.
And then went up, I think his first mod was a Suzuki frame.
Okay.
With the engine in it. And then something else. Then he finally got on, it was a Fisher mod.
Okay.
A Fisher mod. And I can remember the nights. He was just so so excited about it. And Jody would go up to Bud Fisher's, and work on it. Well, Matt wanted to go too. Well, then I'd be looking at my watch, and I'm like, it's 11 o'clock at night. He's got to go to school tomorrow. Well, too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
They'd finally get home. He'd be sound asleep in Jody's truck, and Jody'd bring him in and throw him in bed, and then he'd get up I'd fight with him to get up in the morning, and off they'd go, and then back over to Ashtabula again, you know. So I really, really liked the bike that he had. It had a silver vein.
Oh, that's cool.
Powder coating. It was gorgeous. Yeah. But yeah, so that he started out that way, you know, and he learned so much about his bike,
which is awesome. I feel like it's a huge accomplishment when a rider can really learn about it and can, even if they can tell you about it instead of somebody else.
Right. Unfortunately, I think we are lacking a little bit of that in our sport nowadays.
I see it. Yes. Yep.
You know, I mean, Matt could come off the track and say what was wrong, or he could start fixing it himself.
Yes. Yes. And especially on things like that, you know, like you just said, if something were to happen on track, Matt would probably be able to, you know, he probably already had it diagnosed, or he could diagnose it quick. And there's some things that happen where you could possibly fix it there on track and get going again.
Right.
Where with a lot of riders nowadays, they don't have a clue. Oh, it's not running right, or this is doing this. I'm done. Well, now you got no points for that race.
Right.
You
right.
know. So, but obviously he started on the minis. He, you know, kind of started from the beginning. It's not like he just got dropped into it at a certain age and, you know, here you go. This is ATVs, and these kids have been riding for quite a while.
Right.
You know.
No, he did start at the beginning, like at a younger age. And when we started racing, it was called the Grand National Series. And it was 6 motocross and 6 flat track or TT races. Yeah. So that meant you either had to have 2 different bikes, or you had to take your motocross bike home and switch it over, which is what we did.
Yeah, do a quick conversion and get ready. Yeah. That was really cool back when they did that too. But then obviously he took it as serious as he could, to the point where he did move up into the big ranks.
He did. He won the 90 mod class in 98 and 99. Then in 2000, he didn't know if he wanted to move to A or B.
Okay.
We're at Etchikani. He says, I don't know what to do. I said, let's go down and see how many are in each class.
Yeah.
Because, of course, back then, we had a lot of riders.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes.
So a lot of qualifiers. So we went down, and I talked to the registration people, and I said, how many right now do you have in each class? And she said, and I looked at him and, what do you want to do? He says, I'll do A. So he did A and ProAm, 250 ProAm.
Okay.
Yeah, that first year. And he finished second overall in second overall in 250A.
Okay.
And 6th overall in 250 Pro-Am.
Not bad at all on your first year in a big bike.
Correct.
That's
yes.
crazy. So then the following year, what did he do after that?
He did the same 2 classes.
Okay.
And he finished 3rd in 250A and 4th in 250 Pro-Am.
Okay.
But he had to miss a couple, the last 2 races, because at Loretta's that year, when the main for 250A took off, someone in front of him did not do the first double.
Okay.
And Matt ran into the back of him.
Yeah.
And dislocated his hip.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was out for the rest of that season.
Yeah. Oh, man. And so he eventually, kept at it. How many championships did he end up getting?
Just the two.
Just the two. Okay.
Just the two in the mod.
Okay.
90 mod.
Okay. So 2-time national champion, which a lot of people can't say that they were 1-time champion. And then he moved up into the pro class.
Right.
So first of all, before we get more into that, how did that make you feel as a mother of a pro rider when he came into it and did his pro career?
Well, it was very exciting. I sucked a lot of wind watching him race, but, I knew he would do well. Mm-hmm. I knew he would put everything he could into it. Mm-hmm. John always had what I felt more talent.
Okay.
But Matt had more drive.
Okay.
He had more determination. He wanted it more.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew going into it, he'd be good.
Yeah. And I guess that kind of goes in the next one. At what point did you realize, he's got what it takes to go into the pro ranks?
Well, racing the ProAm class and knowing that he'd already raced with most of the pros anyhow.
Because back then, a lot of people probably don't realize this either. Back then, a lot of the pros ran ProAm as well.
Correct.
So it wasn't just, nowadays you've got the Pro-Am classes, maybe 1 or 2 pros, and the rest are your pro sport, which is your essentially open A guys at this point.
Right.
It was a lot of pro guys that were bumping down into Pro-Am and A guys that came up to Pro-Am.
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So essentially he ran Pro-Am and did well. I mean, he got 6th place his first year. That's pretty good when you realize that there's a lot of pro riders in that class.
Well, there's a lot of pro riders, and again, they had to do motocross and they had to do flat track.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had Natalie and in motocross, then you had Shane Hitt and Tim Farr, and it's like, wow. Mm-hmm. He had a stack. He had his first and only year in pro class, he had to qualify for every event.
Which is, obviously it probably sucked at that point, but it was really cool when you look back at it now. They had to qualify at one point to even make it to the races.
That's right. There were fellows that went home or didn't get on the track.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had to, and when I say qualify, it means they had more than 20 riders. Yeah. At each event.
Yeah, which is awesome.
It is.
It's phenomenal now that you think about it, especially where we are right now.
Right. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And so before we continue on, obviously John races well. How far did John go with his racing career?
He went up to Pro-Am,
he did.
4-stroke Pro-Am. Yeah, he ran 450A and 4-stroke Pro-Am.
Okay. Yeah. And did John get any championships at all?
No.
Nope, never.
No.
But, like you said, he had a lot of talent, didn't quite have that drive. So he may have just been going out there and having fun at the same time and not really caring.
Could be.
Yeah.
But
it's hard to say. You never know.
He did very well. He was the first rider to ride a 4-stroke in the 450B class.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah. But you think about then where people are like, what is with this 4-stroke here? Nowadays, if there is 1 2-stroke at the track, 250R or whatever, a lot of people flock to that machine.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's so cool that, oh my goodness, a 250R is here.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then it was the opposite. 1 4-stroke
and obviously back then people didn't realize that 4-strokes were going to become what they are now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I can remember at Redbud, it rained, and Matt had taken his 250R out for one of the practices, and he came back and he says, I'm going to ride the Yamaha. And I said, Matt, I said, if you ride the Yamaha in your qualifier, you have to stay on it.
Right.
You can't switch back. He's like, I know, but I think it'll do better in the mud and everything. So that's the way it went.
Yeah. And how'd it go?
It went well.
Good.
It did go well.
Always good to hear. So obviously Matt went pro. How many years did he ride in the pro class?
He just had the 1 year.
Just the 1 year.
Yep.
And what year was that?
That was 2002.
It was 2002. So then coming into 2003, obviously I'm sure there's many people that don't really know, what has happened. And if you want to talk about that, we can. If you don't, we can move on. It's all up to you.
Well, I think it might be good to share because, like you say, there's a lot of people that don't know and don't understand where 88 Live to Ride came from or anything. But so we were down at the inaugural ATV Olympics down in Gainesville, Florida. And it was, they did cross country, then they did supercross, and then they were to go to motocross on Sunday. And Matt, on the day they did the cross country, he came in second overall behind Chris Borich. And I can remember at dinner that night, because Ray Christie hosted a spaghetti dinner.
Okay.
And we're sitting at the table, and Matt says, tomorrow we'll see where he ends up. I'm like, okay, Matt. Yeah. So he was challenging in the Supercross. He was challenging Jeremiah Jones for the lead, and they had both lapped Chris Borich, but he went over just like a bump. I don't know, but he was too close to Jeremiah, and his front tire hit Jeremiah's back tire, which made his bike flip. When he flipped, his right foot went down through his Nerf nets, and he couldn't get away from the bike, and that's what caused his death. They pronounced him before he left the track, but yeah.
And it's obviously, I mean, like, I got chills right now, and I knew this story. But yeah, I mean, obviously that is a terrifying thing. It's terrible, but like I said, it's something that I feel like people should kind of know, because it kind of explains where everything comes from, where your drive to have the safety at the track and all these things that you do. And obviously we'll touch base on more on that here in a bit, on what all that you do at the track. And I think that because of you, obviously the safety standards have really grown, especially in the recent years.
I do too, yeah.
But I mean, obviously without you doing a lot of things that you have, where would we be right now with some of the safety standards that we have at the track? And obviously, yeah, I mean, with Matt and what happened, obviously he left behind a legacy, and obviously, either 88 Live to Ride, that was Matt's number.
Right.
And, you've got Joel Hetrick that took that number as well. And you've got, Alex Gillette took that number. And you see that number a lot. Obviously originally it was more of a thing for Matt.
It was. And March of 2003, I got a phone call from Michelle Hetrick. And she said, hey, Joel would like to talk to you. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. You know, so Joel gets on the phone, and he said, I'm getting my mod done. And he says, and I'd like to run 88. Is that okay with you? And I said, yes, Joel, I'd be honored to have you run that number.
Yeah. And I think that he's been running that number with a lot of pride. And I think he's done that number really good deeds. You know, look at it now. You know, like I said, you see 88 all over the track now because of him.
Right.
And so, I mean, you've got Joel that kept the number alive way back when and is continuing to keep it alive now. So it's really cool to me, and I'm sure it's cool for you to see that as well. You know, all these new riders that are putting number 88 on their bikes.
Right. It is. It does my heart. Does my heart well.
Yeah. And I mean, the parents and the riders that are listening to this probably had no idea why they were actually running that number until now.
Right.
So, you know, it's very cool. And obviously with that too, you know, there are memorial events for Matt. You know, there's one coming up this year even.
Yes.
So
it's going to be out at Pymatuming Whole Shot Raceway.
Which is where it all started.
Linesville, PA. And it's funny because we started having Matt's memorials out at Linesville at Pyma. And had them several years there. And then there were just some issues that Jody and I weren't comfortable with. So we moved his race up to Maple Shade in Sugar Grove. And Sherry and Doug Lawson have a beautiful track, and they were so accommodating. So we had, I don't know, maybe 5 races there. And then after 10 years we said, well, it's time to stop. So and I always thought maybe sometime down the road we'd have another one. Well, a new gentleman, Rebel Mead, bought Pymatuming Whole Shot. And he approached me and said, would you mind if we had a memorial race? And I said, no, that would do my heart a lot of good. And I said, you know, Pyma that was Matt's home track. That's where he grew up. That's where he learned what he needed to learn.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm really excited that we're going there. It's going to be July 25th, 26th, 27th, something like that. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, last weekend in July. And that is the following week after Pleasure Valley. So I'm hoping a lot of people will stay in the area and be able to join us. I did talk with Rebel today, and there is camping. If you want to go right from Pleasure Valley over to Pymatuming, you can and camp there. And he's hoping to have water and electric, water and electric hookups, but that's all dependent on the weather and him be able to get them in. Right.
Well, and hopefully we should have enough time as long as the weather cooperates that he can get that done. And yeah, I mean, with that event, you know, obviously it's going to be special because it's something coming back. And I know Rebels, he's pulling out all the stops.
I mean, he sure is.
He's got the ATV Big Air Tour in, who I had 2 of the ATV Big Air Tour riders on this show already. And, you know, that's going to be really cool to see. He's, you know, really good payout involved. And I'm sure he's going to do a lot of other events with it.
Right. They're going to be, I think, Friday night, they're going to do a pit bike race. And there'll be I believe there's going to be a payout for it.
Most likely.
Also, and I should say that Joel and Brandon Hogue are doing a riding school.
Oh, that's cool.
There. and right before the race. So you want to kind of look at that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're looking to get a riding school in, and those are the two guys to get it from right now.
Right.
Or two of the main guys you'd want to get a school from.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's super cool, and I can't wait. I know my whole family, we're excited for that event. It's going to be very cool, and it is a fun track to go to, and like you said, it was Matt's track, so it just makes sense to go back there and do this all over again.
It does.
But before we move on, Debbie, obviously with Matt's legacy and everything he accomplished, if you could tell everybody one thing about Matt, what would it be?
That's a tough question. One thing. I guess truly his love of the sport. His love of the sport, and that's why I can't walk away from it. It just, he gave up a lot. I mean, his coach for Little League said, Matt, you have to make a decision here. You're either going to play ball or you're going to go racing.
Yeah.
Well, you know what we did.
Right.
And he just loved it so much and had so many friends, across the country. And it didn't bother me when he got old enough to travel on his own, because I knew if he got in trouble, he'd know somebody in the state he could call.
Right.
But he did. He just loved the sport so much, and that's just something hard for me to let go of.
Yeah, I understand. I 100% understand that. But obviously with that, like you said, you keep going to the track. You have built something in memory of Matt, which is 88 Live to Ride. So I guess first of all, what is 88 Live to Ride, in your words?
88 Live to Ride. Why we started it was because it was so frustrating to Matt to have to leave the track, to have a crash, and he had to leave the track.
Right.
And then to get to the ER and sit and wait. Most of the time, there was something, but sometimes there wasn't, and then he was mad. He just, I missed practice, or I missed my race, and it just frustrated him so bad. So I'm like, what can we do? What can be done?
Yep.
And then Ray Christie, George Cortez, and John Reagan, Dr. Reagan, came to me and said, what if we started a med unit in Matt's memory? And I'm like, that would be so wonderful.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how that came around, and then it just grew from there.
Right. So what was your initial vision of it? What you thought it was going to be when it first started? What did you plan on it being?
Well, what I had hoped for and wished for was that we could offer walking wounded care. And maybe have someone who could evaluate. Yes, you need to go to the hospital.
Right.
No, let me wrap it. You'll be okay. At first, that's what I envisioned.
Yep.
And when Doc Reagan was still with us, he could do stitches. Now, I haven't ever approached Jim to see if they'll do that or not, but Doc would do stitches. I know he stitched Matt up on Matt biffed his chin at Daniel Boone.
Okay.
And had to get stitches, and Doc said, jump up on my counter here, and he did, and he stitched him up. Yeah. But and that was a good thing, to have, to have Doc Reagan with us. And, we really, and he could cast someone.
Oh, wow.
Also.
Yeah. Yeah.
While we were at the track. So.
That is so crazy, all the things that they would do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started. Then, how has it expanded from the original idea?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to years, 88 Live the Ride's been around for 22 years, so it's hard to kind of divide the times up. But I can do it now. Up until, or including 2017, we truly just were able to offer walking wounded care. I had either a nurse available or I had a paramedic that traveled with us. Okay. And then once we got to that, in 2018, things changed for us. Things changed for us. We got a grant. We got a grant to help. And with that, in looking at things we could do, John Ford called me and he said, I was at the Supercross here in Texas, and he says, I was talking with a fella, his name's Jim View, and he has a physical therapy, office, and might be interested in traveling to the races and coming to the races.
Yeah.
So I talked to Jim and we came up with a plan. And so that's how they started with us.
That's awesome. That is very cool. And, I guess with that, what is, in the 22 years that this has been going on, what would you say would be like your most proud moments with 88 Live to Ride?
Well, one of the proudest moments was the first year we received Sponsor of the Year at the banquet. That definitely was one of my proudest moments.
Yeah.
And then knowing that we were doing the best we could for the riders, doing the best we could to get them out on the track.
Yeah. And
that truly, I didn't okay this with Joel to say anything, but at Briarcliff this year, first, I think it was his first moto. I'm not sure what happened, but he did something to his ankle. And he came over kind of on the QT and was talking with Cherie, and she wrapped it and everything, and he went out and did what he needed to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it would have changed if his ankle wasn't wrapped or not.
Right.
But I'm just,
just a lot of what ifs there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that could have been the championship moment right there, having
it could have been. Up. I'm glad it wasn't. And he may have had the fortitude to just say, I've got to do this, and done it.
Yeah. So in 2025, what all services does 88 Live to Ride offer?
All right. We still do walking wounded care. They offer joint mobilization, compression therapy, massage, and stretching. And Leon, all these services that they do are free of charge. We don't charge anything if you come see us when we're at the races.
And so obviously you've got Jim and Resilient there. Obviously, are they donating their time, or how is that? How are you getting them there?
All right, we pay for them to be there.
You do? Okay.
We do pay for them. It's it's right between $48,000 and $5,000 an event to have them, and that was okay, definitely okay. 2018 to 2023 because we had a 5-year grant.
Yep.
And the grant covered all their expenses. Last year we didn't have the grant, and so we had to use up what we had raised through the auction, our annual fundraiser, and anything else, any other monies that had come in. So this year is going to be a defining year for us.
So in the past, I mean, did you have people that were donating money towards this? Obviously, you've got the auction that used to be at Loretta's, and now I heard we're going to be doing it at Briarcliff. What other ways was there to either raise or obtain funds to do what you do?
Well, we sold apparel at the tracks. I have a very good friend, David Eller, who now has Phoenix Racing. And he started several years ago. It's called Charity Lap Program.
Okay.
And he has, since that began, he has donated between $4,000 and $5,000 to us each year.
Okay.
So that was a source of income. And not even Ian from SSI Decals donated so much stuff for us. It was crazy. So those were things we didn't have to pay for. Didn't have an outlay of money. But pretty much that was only money coming in.
And I mean, essentially with what David was doing, that would take care of one event.
Right.
And for the pro season, we have 10 events.
Right.
So it leaves a huge hole there.
It does.
And so, how can people help out with 88 Live to Ride?
Well, as I said at the banquet, I had hoped that maybe teams or individuals would step up and say, hey, I'll be a sponsor for this race. And maybe not sponsor the whole thing, but, help out somehow. So definitely anybody who'd like to step up and help us to bring Resilient to the tracks, a donation in monetary donation is gladly accepted and appreciated. I don't know, we're not going to be able to do as big of an auction at Briarcliff as we've done in the past because we don't have Loretta's, we don't have our pavilion to use. So it's just gonna, and I know money's tight for everybody. I know it, and I understand it. But we're going to just try our best.
Yeah. Well, and I know, obviously we had the pavilion before for the auction at Loretta's. We're no longer going there, at least this year anyways. I have had conversations with Jeremy, and he said he's going to come up with something. And knowing Jeremy, obviously he might come up with something better than what you and I are thinking. You never know what he's going to come up with.
Never know.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can get some more support on that. And because obviously it's great. I think it's really cool that you do what you do. And, especially people, obviously I'm not under your tent, but I'm close enough where I can see over there quite a bit. You've got a lot of people using it. I feel like if you are a frequent flyer of the 88 Live to Ride tent, maybe you should pitch in a little bit and help out a little bit. If you want to, if you want to keep using this, obviously we need to get all the services there to use them.
Right. And I mean, if anybody has an idea of how we can raise some funds, I'm open.
Yeah.
I'm open to ideas.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
And I know in the past at Loretta's, we also did the spaghetti dinner.
Right.
That was another fundraiser, correct?
We did a spaghetti dinner at a couple different tracks as a fundraiser. We did have spaghetti a few years at the auction, and then switched to pizza to be easier. And there was always a free will offering donation jar for that.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of, it's crazy, all the different types of, crafts that we have in our sport. Maybe somebody can come up with another sort of fundraiser or any sort of way to obtain funds to keep this going.
Right.
Because, I mean, like I said, I think it's really cool what you do, and I want to see it continue.
Well, I do too. And, Leon, I do need to make sure everyone knows we are a 501c3 organization, a public charity. We're registered with IRS. So any donation that they give is a tax write-off.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, anything that people can do, I think it'd be greatly appreciated for sure. And I guess, what are the future actions? Obviously, if we can keep this going how it is there anything else that you'd like to do with 88 Live to Ride?
I thought on that question, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I want to get through this year. I want to see if we can get the support and the help we need to get through this year, because I don't want to make the decision of what tracks we're not going to.
Right.
That I'm not going to have them come to.
Yes.
So, and this is something, it just seems like in the last few years, things just keep getting taken away from us, from the ATV side of things.
Yes.
Things just get taken away. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to keep it. I want to keep it free of charge so that we have something there for the riders that they don't have to worry about. I got to come up with another X amount of money. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it is it is hard to plan for the future when you don't know what's happening right now.
Right.
And how much longer you can continue on with the right now.
Right.
But, on a positive thing is there is a new establishment associated with 88 Live to Ride, which is Matt's Place.
Oh, yes.
What is Matt's Place?
88 Live to Ride was given a piece of property that's probably 3 miles from here.
Okay.
At a max 5. 6 acres. It has a building, 2 buildings on it that are connected. It has a pond, and it has a shooting range on it. And it was just given to us. So it needed a lot of work, And thank goodness for a lot of friends of Matt's and ours. And they came forward to help and work on everything. And we've got it, we're getting ready to start on the building more now. We've gotten the okay from the state. We've gotten our plans approved. And just, it's called Matt's Place. and the tagline is a community gathering spot. So that's what we want it to be. We want it to be a place where everyone, the community, can come and do things. And it's some way that Matt can give back to the community he grew up in.
Right. Because obviously, as we just talked about, Matt is still at the racetracks.
Yes.
He's still traveling the country everywhere we go. So having something now to honor Matt in his home area, because it's not just hometown, it is the whole area here that can come and enjoy this.
Yeah. It's, and like I say, it is a beautiful piece of property, and it's peaceful. And I just, we want to get it to the point where if you want to have a family reunion, and if you want to have a class reunion, if a 4-H club or FFA or softball, baseball, football need to have a place to have a fundraiser, they can come use it. It's there for them to use.
It's too bad that we're too far away. If it was closer to Briarcliff, it'd be cool to even do the auction there.
Oh, would be.
Yeah. I don't know how many people are going to drive the 2.5 hours up here from Briarcliff.
Well, I am hoping, though, that people that come to Matt's memorial race might be able to take a drive and come at least see it.
Because that's a lot closer.
Yes, it is a lot closer. So
that is awesome. Yeah, and obviously I hope that we can get some more support with 88 Live to Ride, because like I said, I think it's really cool having that at the track. Obviously without that, we'd really have nothing as far as unless you need to go to the ambulance. That's the only medical support you're getting. And it's not like you just hop off the track and you crawl in there and be like, hey, my wrist hurts a little bit. It's usually they save that more for something a little more serious.
Right.
But yeah, hopefully we can continue on with 88 Live to Ride, and you can continue offering the support that you have been and all the services that you've been supplying with 88 Live to Ride. But let's shift gears a little bit. We talked about everything, jerk some tears, I'm sure, a little bit.
Yeah.
But Debi as Debi, outside of JB, outside of 88 Live to Ride, you have done a lot for the ATV community. Obviously you and Jody together were a big part of the Loretta's rebuild after it flooded, and building the I don't know what you want to call that little
announcer
stand, the floating Connex boxes, and it's really cool what that is. But I know you guys had a lot to do with that. You're also a part of Team USA and getting that organized. What is that like?
Well, that is amazing, and so much work has to go into it. 88 Live to Ride, I don't know if it was the first year they went overseas or not. Must have been, because they wanted to buy a container. They wanted to own the container. Yes. So 88 Live to Ride bought the container for Team USA.
That was 17, I think.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So myself, I've only gone overseas one time, and it's mind-boggling.
It is.
What goes into everything.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously, I went the same year you went.
Yes, you did.
What are the odds of that? But obviously on my side of things, it was a vacation. But, I can see where, there's a lot involved with doing that. It's not just booking some tickets and, all right, see you in wherever country we're going to.
Right, and let's race and we're done.
Right. There's a lot involved there.
Yeah.
A lot of logistics to make this happen. And obviously, like I said, I know you've been a part of that for many years. Well, pretty much every year we've gone over there. So, obviously from myself, thank you for doing with that. And obviously 88 Live to Ride has been a sponsor of the series, and you've gotten sponsor of the year. You've done a lot for the ATV racing community as a whole, especially motocross, obviously. But I guess with that, what's next? What's next for Debbie? What's next for 88 Live to Ride, JB Racing? What do you have in store?
Those are big questions, and I'm not sure. I honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure Jody's sure what's going to transpire.
Trying to live in the now.
That's what we're going to do, and we're going to get through this year, and then we'll see what next year brings.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how about as ATV racing as a whole? What's something that you would like to see, and where do you want to see ATV racing going?
I'd like to see it going forwards. And I think we're stagnating right now.
Absolutely.
We just don't have the right mix right now to get us going, and I'm not sure what it would take. In honesty, I'd like to see us get a new series. I'd like to see a new series with someone who is enthused, who wants to go out and drum up sponsors for our series so that we can have more, do more.
Yeah.
And I do understand that there's such a huge difference in the number of people that go to the GNCC. But for Thursday through Sunday, I believe they pay $45.
I think so, yeah.
A person.
Yep.
Thursday through Sunday, we have to pay $70.
Right. Almost double.
Almost double.
And then that's just to get into the gate.
Right. That's not for them, and that's not for your pit vehicle if you have one.
Right.
It's not to race. It's not for practice. It's and who knows, even if someone new takes it over, it may have to be that. But if they then bring a little more excitement.
Right.
David Eller's wonderful. When we went down for the dedication of the announcer's tower at Loretta's during the bikes, it was wonderful that we went and saw it. But it just, they had this fabulous presentation of all these different things.
Yeah.
And then they had a name-known band come in.
Yeah.
We don't get any of that.
Right. I mean, I think the only time, as far as I know, we've had some sort of musical entertainment is because somebody brought them in. Right. I know I like Lake Sugar Tree when we were there in 2020. I know he had a guy come in and he played guitar and did some stuff for a little while. Otherwise, the
Root River.
I was going to say, the only time I can really think of people bringing a band in was when Rich would bring in bands or some sort of musical entertainment.
Right.
I think that would be every year everyone's complaining about the shenanigans in the pits. Well, give them something to do. If you've got some sort of entertainment going on, when you think about it too, you've got Briarcliff that has pit bike races. He's got all this stuff that usually is going on. And you don't hear about shenanigans in the pits as much as you do at some of these other tracks.
Right. That's right.
it's just a lot of things. And, obviously I think our sport needs support, more support on every level. It comes from the promoters, it comes from the brands that are involved, it comes everywhere. It's not just like, oh, well, our series is pumping up all this effort to grow, but then Yamaha's only making a machine. Well, nobody's really trying, it seems like. So why would anyone else besides Yamaha come out with a machine?
Right.
We are all supporting ourselves and keeping this alive within ourselves. And like you said, for the reasons that you're doing this, for the love of the sport, the reason why I'm doing this and the reason why I'm still at the track is for the love of the sport.
Right.
It's hard to see this the way it is and see people pulling out every year and see the numbers going down because, you got to spend so much money to do this for zero return. In our pro class, there's only a couple guys that are making money doing this, and enough money to even come close to breaking even. Most of these guys, they're just losing.
Oh, they are. And that's the thing. When we started back with it, we had Kawasaki, we had Honda, we had Suzuki. I mean, the big factory rigs.
Yeah.
Factory rigs, all set up.
Yeah.
And those guys were making a living riding for them. So, I mean, that's not our series' fault that we don't have those because...
Right. I mean, obviously the economy tanked in 2008 and that's where everyone really pulled back and we never regrew from that. We never really healed from it and nobody's come back from that. And like I said, luckily Yamaha is still offering us a machine with the YFZ 450R. But, like you said, we had all these factory rigs. Now we've got 5 really cool rigs at the track, in the pro pits.
Oh.
One of them being JB 88 Live to Ride. One of them being Baldwin Motorsports, TDR, my team 4130 Motorsports and the Laundervilles, and Chad's got it. He's got his rig that's wrapped and everything, and otherwise it's everyone else. And Deckers have a really nice rig as well.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise everyone else is working out of what they can work out of because there isn't a lot of money in this sport. There really isn't any money in this sport. Period. It's all from sponsorships and things like that you can make some money back on it.
That's correct. And the other thing that I've noticed is wasn't unusual to be walking around the pits and see Curtis Sparks, Wayne Meridian.
Right.
All these, Wayne Henson, they'd all be there. They'd all be there.
Right. All these names behind the brands that we know.
That we use. So right now, I mean, we have RP Performance.
Right.
Alex, I mean,
Alex and Richard when he can.
Yes.
You've got Jody and yourself with JB. You've got Mark with Baldwin. You've got Tim with TDR. Who else am I thinking here? I mean, you've got a few names that show up behind these brands. Because either they've got their own team they're running with it, or to just be there in support of their brand. You got Impact Solutions every once in a while.
Right.
You've got Doug Schiltz to, Impact is there for the Elka. Doug's there for the Motowas. Mark and Johnny Hale are both there, kind of with the PEP stuff. But yeah, I mean, you for most of the part, you don't have people from the actual brands there. Mike Walsh is there at some of the races too. But yeah, you don't have all these brands there that people are running. So if something happens, well, let's hope that you bought 2 or 3 of that part because that's the only way you're getting any support from it is when you replace it yourself or fix it yourself,
True.
Whatever.
True.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to get back to where we were. It's just, how do you do that? And it's sad that to grow, we need to grow back to the way it used to be, is what we're all trying to do.
Right.
Instead of trying to evolve to what's next.
Changes need made.
Changes need made. And it starts everywhere. It's not one place.
No, that's right. That's right. Now, I just think of things and I say to myself, I mean, you're spending all this money, and what are you getting?
Most of the time, was it a 30-cent little award that you get? You know, they're not even trophies anymore.
No.
It's a little plaque made from what, 5 mil thick foam?
I don't know. I don't know how much it says when a writer sends a resume and says, I finished in the top 5 at the ATV MX series.
It sounds cool if it's a brand that doesn't really know, but and then you look in, it's like you finished 5th out of 6. Well, yeah, you're 5th fastest in the country essentially, but there's only 6 people that showed up to that class. It's a real kick to the gut.
Yes, it is.
You know?
Yes, it is. To be spending what you are.
Yeah.
But
to get no return. And then people are wondering why our numbers are down. Well, they're down because nobody's trying anywhere.
No advertising.
No.
I mean, some of them are doing better.
Some of them are doing good. You know, some of them are, you go to the track and then, well, that's a big thing too. You look at it is most of the tracks, who are your spectators?
There aren't any spectators. I mean,
it's
Grandma
us.
and Grandpa.
It's us.
Yeah, Grandma and Grandpa.
Yeah, you're right. It's the riders that are not on the track and want to watch some racing and their family. We had, I'm sure you get a few stragglers that come in that actually spectate, but otherwise, there's one race last year that had spectators. Briarcliff. And I just told Jeremy the other day, there was a first time where obviously we weren't quite to a bike national for numbers. It was the first time you got close to thinking like, wow, this is kind of like a dirt bike national right now.
Absolutely.
Without toilets being set on fire.
I was standing out in the center and I looked towards the back field and it was filled with cars. I took a picture of it because it was like, I can't believe this.
So I just filmed an episode with Jeremy Osborne and he just told me on there, he was about 30 people away from not having any parking. People are going to have to park out on the road. And I don't know of any other track that could say that.
Oh.
Not for an ATV national.
No. Nope.
So, yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, and we're all doing our part. A lot of us are doing our part, I feel. It's hopefully that more people will step in and more people that are outside of us will see that there is something here. We have a lot of talented riders. There's a lot of talent at that track, wherever we are.
All ages.
Exactly.
Ages.
From 4 years old to 60 years old. You've got the fastest, essentially, we have the fastest guys in the world coming to our national races.
Absolutely, yes.
And yet there's, I can go on and I can watch, on ESPN, I can watch the World Championship air guitar battles. Yet I can't watch ATV racing, which is a sport. And that is sad. Very sad. And to think that we were once on ESPN.
Oh.
It makes your guts turn.
It does. It's very upsetting. It's very upsetting. But in reality,
I guess we have nobody to blame but ourselves.
Right. And obviously the people that are still at the track, I think all of us appreciate everyone that shows up to be there. It's always very cool when we see new faces and see that people are coming in, and we see people coming here from other countries even. Whether it's them just to come over here and say they did this, or because there's someone over there that I'm determined to beat. It's really cool to see something, and it's always really cool to see some new talent coming in, because at what point are we going to have that person that steps in and is now the person to beat in the pro class?
Right.
Whether it's one of our current riders that clicks that next level and is now winning, or at least battling for a win, or if it's someone that we have no idea about that comes over here and just powers down. And it doesn't matter what class it is. I mean, we just saw it at Chicani, the WMX class, which has been dominated for the last 3 seasons. And now our 3-time champion has to actually put in the work this year.
Yes, she does.
If she's going to go with a 4-time champion. So love Joel. Love everything he does. He's a great guy on and off the track, but I'm ready for that next person to get up there and at least start battling with him.
Well, I would like to see somebody up there battling with him.
Right.
Because it does get a little boring.
It does. And it doesn't look good for our sport either.
No.
Like I said, I'm not hoping that Joel doesn't win anymore. I want everyone to win at some point that's in that class. Whether it's from weird circumstances, or for, somebody is all of a sudden a much better mud rider or whatever. I want to see some more action going on in that class.
Right.
And I'm ready for it. It's just who's going to do it.
Yeah.
I
have some ideas.
Yeah. Well, and without giving Joel a handicap. Because that's everyone always jokes, well, it's funny to you. It's not funny to Joel.
No.
He's put in that work. He's deserved to be where he is. Now it's, like I said, it's who can figure it out and who can get to that level that Joel is at.
Right. Well, people ask me, who's your favorite pro rider?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh.
It's always a hard one to answer, especially, you're kind of in the same shoes as I am. Is everybody on that track. You could spark up a conversation with any one of those riders,
right,
without it being awkward.
Right. Well, that's right. And then I have to say, well, I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Hetrick has my heart,
mm-hmm.
and always will, as long
mm-hmm.
as he's riding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's my go-to.
Yeah. And anybody.
But do I want everybody else? It would be fun to see somebody challenge him.
Absolutely. Make him work. I mean, look at Chicani. There's one moto where he actually had to put in some work.
And that was fun.
It was
to
great.
Watch.
It was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So how do, and like I said, I'm not trying to put anybody down. All the guys in that class are faster than I am. I'm not trying to say they suck by any means.
No.
It's just at that level, I hope more riders can get to that level where Joel is currently.
Do you know offhand how many of those riders, other than Chad,
mm-hmm.
there's Chad and Joel,
mm-hmm.
then I think we have a pretty big gap on how many years they've been in the pro class.
Jeffrey's been in the pro class for quite a while. Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been
true.
in for over a decade at this point. Joel and Chad, Chad's been in the pro class for a long time now at this point. And obviously, he's earned his championships. He he was the man forever.
He was.
And Joel figured it out, and now Joel is the man. So like I said, who can get to that next point? But otherwise, you've got those three. And then, Janus has been in the pro class for a good minute now too. I think, was it 2015 that he went pro? I believe.
I honestly don't know.
I want to say, don't bet the farm on this, but I want to say that Janusa, this is a decade that Janus has been in the pro class now. Okay. I believe he went pro in Daytona in 15. Because that's when he went off on his own on the the Janusa team and all that stuff too. But otherwise, it's pretty much everyone else has only been in that class for a few years now.
Right. So it takes a little bit. So
you need to get seasoned. You need to get seasoned like a good cast iron skillet. You got to season that a little bit before and obviously all the rookies that are coming in. The rookies this year, they're not slow. They proved their point last year in ProAm, and our ProAm classes are very competitive.
Oh yes,
nowadays. So hopefully we can get more of those riders to keep coming up. And I think that's my biggest goal is obviously, yes, we need some more action in the races and not just in that mid-pack area. We need a more exciting race as far as the lead goes. And what I really want to see in that pro class is qualifiers to be more than just a gate pick.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, as bad as this sounds, I want to see somebody get, sorry, pack your stuff in the trailer. You're not racing today.
Boy, because that does light a fire under you.
It'll light a fire. Yeah, you're just going to break your heart the first couple times. But, it happens and, I need to try harder.
That's right.
So that's where I want to see at least the pro class go. Because we have qualifiers in some of the class. It's not every single one.
Right.
But, you've had qualifiers in the pro sport, pro-am classes for the last couple of years. You've got a few classes here and there in the amateur ranks where you've got LCQs to make it to Sunday's race.
Yep.
So.
Could be exciting.
Yeah, it could be. Could be. And like I said, I hope we can all work together and I hope there are some good ideas brought forward at some point. And everyone's firing on all cylinders on all the levels, like I said, where we can get this sport to grow back to where it was. So then we can have this conversation of how do we go further?
Right. That would be a dream come true.
There we go. Now we have our goals. We just need to reach those goals.
Right.
So, but I thank you for doing this with me. And, a couple more questions for you before we go. And the first one is, I ask this to everybody that comes on. What is your advice to somebody that just getting into ATV riding, just getting into ATV racing? What advice would you give that person?
I would say don't go all out on a bike. Mm-hmm. Start out with the basic. Go to your local tracks. Mm-hmm. Really get a feel for it. Really see if you enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for the younger kids, for the parents to know if they enjoy it and should they be investing.
Right.
Because it's an investment of money and time. Mm-hmm. Time away from home, So I would say go with the basics, go to your local tracks, visit a national, and talk to people there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like the ATV racing community as a whole, we're just one giant family.
Oh, I do too. Leon, you guys have kept me together for a lot. 22 years.
Yeah. Just keep on coming back. Your family, Debbie. I mean, it's always like I was actually on my way back from Etchicani, I was talking to my wife and I was like, it's not a race weekend without getting a Debi hug at some point during the weekend. It's just one of those things that like, all right, I'm going to get a hug from Debi, and it's just normal. It's one of those things that you know is going to happen, and you hope it continues forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're such a big family. Like I said, like any family, we do have shitheads.
Oh.
But you still love
goodness.
them. You still invite them to Thanksgiving, whatever. But we all help each other out when it comes down to it. And if you're coming into this, if you have recently gotten into this and you try to get some help from somebody, you may not have ran into the right person if you didn't get something. I'd say 98% of us are ready to help someone out at any time, whether it's advice or throwing in a hand just to get something done. You need to get the bike fixed quick. If you need a part, most of us are there ready to go when you need something. So, like you said, visit, check out a national, and that's actually watch the races, cruise the pits, talk to people. A lot of us are willing to talk as well.
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. See if this is an environment you want to be a part of.
Right. Most of us are a little weird. So are you okay with that? It's
true. You don't know how many people I still stay in touch with. Mm-hmm. That are no longer part of our series.
Absolutely.
Well, you probably do the same thing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just amazing. I mean, Ryan Barnes came to Briarcliff, saw what we were doing, and everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, he knew. Mm-hmm. I've known him forever.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to do something for the auction. I want to do something. I said, well, that'd be wonderful. Yeah. He bought a generator.
It's something.
Brought it up to the auction.
Yeah.
It's like this is somebody who has been out for years.
Mm-hmm. And with the generator, it's somebody that knows something that we all need at the races.
Right. Definitely.
But yeah, and it's, when you see somebody at the track that hasn't been at the track for quite a while, it's like, you kind of like set you back for a second. Oh, hey, like, what's up? How you been?
I never got, other than for the pro race, I never got out from underneath our tent at Briarcliff.
Oh, yeah.
Because of all the people that stopped by.
Yeah.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. And it was the same. I mean, obviously I have work to do with Jaden's program, but when he was in Pro Sport Pro-Am last year, I would have some downtime, but it was the same thing, because I would look up from the bike and there's people watching me work. That never happens at an ATV national, not unless it's somebody that needs something from you, or somebody that that's going to come over. But you look up and it's like, I have no idea who you are, and you're just watching me work, or you're checking out one of the bikes or something. Same thing. I was just talking to people under the tent. Awesome. Love it.
Yes.
So, but of course, 88 Live to Ride is on social media.
We try. I know I hate to admit it, but sometimes I think it's my age that just kind of like throws me out of the ballpark here. But yes, we're on Facebook. Mm-hmm. We're on Instagram. We have a website, and
all of it's just 88 Live to Ride.
Right.
Okay.
That's it.
There you go.
Yes.
And I know the other one that you're associated with, JB Racing, is on some stuff as well. Not as active.
Nope.
But it is there.
It is there. Mm-hmm. It is there. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, but anyone else that, before we go, is there anyone else that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Well, first and foremost, I have to thank Jody for putting up with everything. All my ideas, can we take this? Can we take that? Why won't it fit in the trailer? He's just been there for me for a long time. And I would like to say thank you to Robin Ford, because she is my go-to person for if I want to get something proofed, or if I want to say, do you think it would be rude if I said this? You know, she kind of gives me guidance there. And just for being such a great friend. And just, you know, there are so many people. David Eller, again, for continuing to remember 88 Live to Ride and including them in his charity lap program. And just being a good friend also. I know there's so many others, that everybody that helps out with the auction, everybody that comes up and gives me a hug at the racetrack. You don't know what it means. You don't know what it means, because Etchikani was a tough one to go to. That's where Matt ran his first pro race. So that was a tough one to be at.
And it was so cool to see you in that sweatshirt from 2003.
I found, you know,
that was 2002 sweatshirt, wasn't it?
It was 2000. No, it was 2003.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't want to look like a fool, but.
And then Jeremiah won that race in 2003 and dedicated it to Matt. So I have so many wonderful memories. So many, you know. Just keep me going.
Right. Yeah, and it's, you know, going to that racetrack, like I said, you see your race family, you do all this stuff, and there's times, obviously, where you think to yourself, why do I do this? You know, that things get tough or whatever, and then, you know, it's the sport that brings you back. You know, and like for you too, like you said, you had Matt who just loved this sport so much, and until you are really involved with it, you don't understand why.
Oh, you don't. Traveling, we had John and Matt. I said, where else or what else can you do that two teenage boys would want their mother with them?
Right.
Where?
Exactly.
Tell me. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, other thing that's cool with it too is, you know, we talked about John a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of people won't know, but John's still here.
Yes.
You know, if you buy a JB Racing component, chances are that John touched it.
He touched it. He welded it.
Well, you know, he
finished it up.
Right. So you may not see John at the races anymore, but he's still involved with ATVs as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So it's just another person that never really got out of it.
No.
You know?
No. And he really, truly loves what he does. You know?
He does phenomenal work, that's for sure. You know, he just fixed the motor mount on one of JJ's practice bikes for me, and if it wasn't for the fact that the powder coat was ground off, you'd never tell that the thing was cracked to begin with. And he did his thing, and like I said, it turned out amazing. So, but Debbie, I really want to thank you for sitting down and doing this with me. You know, I know we talked about this for a little while, and we've had a lot of conversations about a lot of different things especially over this last off season. But thank you for doing this and, you know, getting Matt's story out there for the next generation of rider that knows who you are, knows 88 Live to Ride, but doesn't know where it came from, doesn't know where Joel's number came from, and why they are probably, the roots to why they are running number 88 as well. So thank you very much. And obviously we'll be talking a lot more, and hopefully we can get you on again with great news of, where we're going next, and that the sport's growing and everything else. But, thank you for watching this. Thank you for listening to this. And, if you want more content like this, follow Four Wheel Frenzy on YouTube, of course, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And we're working on getting on some of the other podcast platforms. So like I said, thank you again, Debbie. And we'll talk to everybody soon.